Evening listeners, good evening viewers to TV and radio, and right at this moment, specifically viewers and listeners to This Week in Interview. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Interview with your host and guide, Anthony Drago. It's a pleasure to be with you as it is every week when I get to spend an hour, sometimes an hour and a half with you on This Week in Interview, where we explore contemporary topics that I choose to bring to you um, from a different angle, a different perspective than you would probably automatically get by just clicking your mouse or your remote. We like to think that what we present here is sufficiently different. And tonight is no exception because leadership never goes out of style. Leadership is always the most important aspect in almost every sector of our life. And tonight we're going to be talking politics. And those of you who are long-time listeners to this week in interview know that this is one of my favorite areas of discourse. So tonight I have a very special guest tonight, a very special subject area, and we are going to settle down and have a wonderful discussion that I get the pleasure to share with you. So grab your drink, share the live, and come right back and let's dive deep into leadership and a special leader that we've had in Dominica so far. So don't go far, stay right there, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Did you remember to share the live? Invite someone to watch and listen to this week in interview with you because what we are doing here is so important. I think that you are part of the most educated audience on social media, on radio. So get some numbers, invite 5 people, tell them that we are on and we are going to be having a very special discussion tonight. Well, what is that special discussion? But first, let me just welcome you, my regular listeners. You come back every week to This Week in Interview, and for that, I am eternally grateful. I don't take it for granted. Some of you have been coming back every Wednesday night for the last probably 7, 8 years. But nonetheless, if tonight is the first time that you listen to This Week in Interview, a very special welcome to you. I hope that you like the way we do things here, that you will come back, and then you too will be among the regular listeners who come back every Wednesday to join us for This Week in Interview. A special good evening to you if you are listening in Dominica on RVR Jams Radio, DigiPlay Channel 59. A big shout out to you and to the management of RVR Jams, also to the management of SBE Radio Online in the Toronto area, uh, online radio that targets primarily the Haitian population, but the Haitians are closely linked to the Dominicans and the St. Lucians and the Grenadians. So welcome to you from wherever you're listening to us. It's always a wonderful time to be with you. Tonight we're talking politics, and those of you who know This Week in Interview know how much I enjoy talking politics. I enjoy talking politics just as much as I enjoy talking literature and literary works. And tonight I get to talk about both of them because my guest tonight is Mr. Alex Bruno, associate professor at Palm Beach State College in Florida. And Alex is here tonight because he just produced a wonderful book um, entitled Dame Eugenia unedited. I don't know how young you are, but once you pass a certain age and you're from the Caribbean, then you junior should need no introduction. But for just in case, you happen to have been on the Titanic and they just rescued you, Demi Jr. was one of the more popular leaders in the Caribbean in the 80s. She was Dominica's first female prime minister, a giant among leaders in the Caribbean. And so Alex Bruno, sometime before, had the opportunity to do an interview with Miss Charles. And this work that he's done, this book that he's published, Dame Eugenia Unedited, is actually the transcript of that interview um, that he did with Miss Charles. Very, very interesting conversation. Very, how do you say it? Questions that were piercing and very relevant question that got Miss Charles to reveal herself, probably in ways that she hasn't revealed it in any other forum or to any other person. And that is what that book is about. All right, so that's enough. Let me just bring up and do a very special welcome to my guest tonight, Mr. Alex Bruno. Alex, welcome back. It's been a while. You've been here before,
Yes,
more than
yes,
once.
yes.
It's been a while, so it's a pleasure to have you back. Welcome.
Thank you, Tony. It's nice to be back here. And let me say from the outset, thanks to Sam, who pretty much single-handedly brought this project to life with his insistence that something should be done about it. And to you for inviting me back here for the first traditional media interview. I had a discussion with Dr. Triffy on a social media platform, but this is like the first interview, and I really wanted it to have been so, and it is indeed so. So thank you.
Welcome, and I feel honored. I feel honored because I know we're going to have a very spirited discussion. And from what I've read in the book, I haven't had the opportunity to read the entire book. And it's not a book that one should rush through in any by any means. It seems as though I would encourage right off the bat, this is not supposed to be a sales pitch, but I will encourage you to get the book. If you are an admirer of Dame Eugenia Charles, you should get the book. And if you are one of those who are not so enamored with the Dame, the late Dame, you should get the book as well. If you are a person who don't have a position one way or the other because you were not familiar with time, or then I also encourage you to get the book. There's a lot of lessons to be learned by studying the life of Eugenia Charles. So, Alex, you are a very busy person. You're an associate professor at a state college, Palm Beach State College. You are a writer, editor, of course. Those of us who know you know that you're a media personality. We also know that you are a researcher.
Yeah.
If that's the correct word, you collect data.
Hmm.
What I'm familiar with is your data around politics and elections. I'm sure you. I'm not sure if you do other types of data collection and analysis, but I'm familiar with that aspect of your work. You are the owner and chief operating officer of One Caribbean Culture that provides a wide range of Caribbean experiences and services. The owner and managing director of Professional Electoral Consultancy, Expertise and Solution. You hold a Master of Arts degree in International Studies, a Master of Arts in Political Science, a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy with a minor in theater. All about the doctor, you say, for your PhD. In the, I guess you're pursuing your doctoral degree. Um, Several awards and honors, including you were initiated in the National Political Science Honor Society. You're nominated for the Anthony N. Sabga Caribbean Award of Excellence. for outstanding contribution and ongoing work in the area of arts and letters, public and civic contribution, and science and technology. Um, you earned full graduate teaching assistantship for Florida Atlantic University. Uh, First place honors Constitution Day essay, Florida Atlantic University. Your research area of interest, to what extent do structural adjustment policies impact positively or negatively the Millennium Development Goals, MDD? Uh, if we keep going down, key research projects include a nationwide scientific survey of Dominican electors, uh, recidivism, a consequence of the US criminal justice system, the spirit of the American person, foundational virtues enshrined in the literary canon of early American fundamentalism. I'm going to stop here because it's your accomplishments are pretty long. As I said, you're a very busy person, which makes me honored that you can pause long enough to come spend time with us on this week in interview, and you still get to write books. So congratulations on the release of your book, Dame Eugenia, on edited. All right. So even if I give you all of this introduction, I'm going to give you a moment to introduce yourself to the audience because we have folks from many of the islands in the Caribbean. We
Yeah.
also have American-based people. We have folks in the UK. We have some folks who join us from the other side of the world. So, in a nutshell, I want you to just do a fill in the gaps or enhance what I just said about you, or what people should know about Alex Bruno.
Well, you did well, actually. Remarkable to highlight some of my key academic achievements. But what I really would like people to know about me is that I'm a simple, ordinary guy who strives to do extraordinary things. I'm from a little remote village in the island of Dominica, or on the island of Dominica, called Calibishi. Of course, my family stretched across to Woodford Ale, Wesley, Marigot, and the entire Northeast. But I was born and brought up in Calibishi, and it was tough because I'm a child of the 70s, and it was not very easy making my way. So I decided to migrate when I was a teenager, and it didn't happen. It didn't work out. I went back and spent 10 more years and then tried again, and it didn't quite happen. Then I actually succeeded 25 years after I tried going for the first time. And so the struggle was real. I was very unqualified in terms of academics. I actually got landed in America, not having completed my GCE O levels, mainly because one, I could not have afforded to take the subjects, and two, I just probably was not fortunate enough to be able to so do. So I did the GED and everything else in America. And you of course, mentioned my academic accomplishments since. And I am all but doctor. I have done all the work necessary. I have not had the time to do what is necessary to have the degree conferred, but I'll take care of that in due course. I'm not busy. Eventually, the honors will fall in place. So that is really me in a nutshell. I love the letters. I did philosophy first and the other degrees after. And I just love to speak. I love to see how things work. I love to research. And you mentioned my research work, which does not begin in politics. My research actually began in commerce. My first bit of research was for a major concern in Dominica, DCP, when I was employed to do a national research on the status of the availability of copra, which was the raw material used to create the soaps and oils in Dominica. And there was a time when the company felt as if they would not be able to procure the material in Dominica. And my research guided them to that. And they were prepared to source the material from St. Lucia and other places. And I also did research work for Dominica Brewery and Beverages Limited, again, a national research for all shops and distributions to show them a trend in terms of the Dominican social behavior when they were trying to reintroduce or repackage the flagship product, Kubuli beer at the time. I was called the Kubuli man, consequently to that. And Kubuli beer, based on my research, became the leading beer in Dominica. I don't think it is anymore. Well, I do not know what the case is right now. But those two major bits of research I did, that I also did research for Springfield Trading as well. So I did quite a lot of those research work before I actually started doing political research, which is, I guess, the main thing that I do these days. But I'm looking forward to work with any business corporation who may want us to extract data for them to let them know what's going on, not just in Dominica, but in the Caribbean and elsewhere as well. So I pride myself to doing that, and I think that's one of my strongest suit, to get information, to get market intelligence, and to be and to explain to the my client what it is that I'm seeing and suggest ways, strategic ways that can be used to better the situation or to take advantage of what the market is saying.
That's great. So you didn't just start doing research in the Caribbean context, because the Caribbean is organized very differently from, say, an American market.
Oh
For one
yes.
thing, data is less available. And although on the other end, folks are friendlier and you get them to talk to you easier, I can imagine it has its own unique set of challenges, trying to do research in that environment where record keeping may not be part, let's say, part of our heritage or culture. We do it with stories, but we don't necessarily write it down.
You're right. And that is the trick. You really ought to be homegrown if you are going to be successful in research in the Caribbean. You need to understand the nature, the psyche, the culture, the psychology of the people. And even when you do, you still have to understand it a bit more for you to be able to extract from them what it is that a business person is looking for. Now, each country is unique. Dominica has its own unique challenges,
But
apart
certainly,
and outside of St. Lucia or Grenada. So yes, you're right about the intricacies of the Caribbean region. That's why people who are looking for research and research work should kind of try to get someone, I would imagine, who really understands the Caribbean and who has a proven track record of mixing with the Caribbean way. And I think through my company, um, we understand the Caribbean, and we will be able to give you reliably enough information as to what it is that we have found on the shores of the Caribbean. And
so
yes,
what's the name of your company? What's the name of your research?
Caribbean Agencies for Political Advancement. That's my professional research company.
Say it slower so somebody can hear.
CAPA, Caribbean Agency for Political Advancement.
Okay, so
And
there you have it. And even if it's in politics, you hear that he's also done work for business and for industry,
well,
as well.
politics in the broad sense, eh? Politics is not just an electoral thing, eh? Politics is everything that what we do as individuals, the relations between people. So the politics there is quite broad. It's not partisan or electoral politics. It is politics in general, because everything that we do is political. And maybe we
Right,
can
but
have an interview on that sometime in the future. That's a
right, but
whole
when
new
people talk,
subject
when
by
people
itself.
hear politics, they usually go to
Yes.
leadership
Yes.
and everything that goes with that. All right,
Yeah.
but so I think that gives a very good picture of who Alex Bruno is, and your work and your interests and all of that. The only other piece I would say is that Alex is also a lover of the art.
Oh, yeah.
And we've collaborated and brought a couple of your theoretical productions to New York City.
Yes.
And so folks, he does that as well.
Yeah. Although I have not produced in about a decade,
Mhm.
because again, I think I've lost the the gist, the drive for it, mainly because of the climate in my country, in Dominica. So I had stopped producing the quality of the theater, the attitude, the changing attitudes of the people. And I guess there are times when creativity takes a hit. And right now, to create in Dominica, it's tough. I mean, I have two plays I could do right now. I, I, I mean, I did a play on Maria, and there's Divided We Stand. They're all written, ready to go, but I just have not been motivated to produce because of the climate. And I hope things change because it's almost 10 years.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you're
yeah. No,
already,
but it's required because when the arts are dim or dormant, it reflects in the quality of life and the fortunes of the population. So I'll
yeah,
encourage you to when you if you can make the time to go back into that area. But let's talk about the reason why you're here.
yeah.
Okay, Miss or Dame Mary Eugenia Charles, former Prime Minister of Dominica. What gives you the authority to be able to do a book on Dame Eugenia?
Good question. The authority is granted because of the quality of the work that is presented in the book. One,
Mhm.
the content of the book is driven by the dame herself. So if she is worth her salt, and she is, this book is worth its salt.
Right,
Because the book pretty much takes the form of a full length interview that I did with her one on one, the last full length interview with the dame, where she spoke to us about the A to Z of her political life. And we have, in a direct way, I should say verbatim, translated the book word for word, period for period, dot for dot, error for error, mistake for mistake. Nothing is missing from what was said in the interview with the dame. And that is what readers should look out for, the beauty of the double talk, the side talk. Everything is there. Nothing is edited out. That's why
hmm
we call it unedited. The audio version will match with the print version. And I wanted to do it so because I didn't think that we should extract anything from the interview. So that I think gives the books its authenticity. And everything that I have done in terms of the analysis of the work is based on my experience, my work with the dame, going back to even my days as a member of the YFM, and following the politics of Dominica personally and making notes and documenting the politics of our country. So I think with that said, readers can be rest assured that when they get a copy of the book, they are actually getting an authentic bit of history, of information, of literature that covers a particular individual in not just Dominican or Caribbean politics, but global politics. Because Dame Eugenia certainly was globally known as a political leader of a small island, mainly because, Tony, she was the first female prime minister of an English speaking Caribbean country. So that gave her some notoriety, as well as, I guess, her political ideology at the time. But we'll get into that when we discuss the
yeah,
book in more detail.
yeah, certainly. And I, to partially answer my own question, what gives you the authority to write on Miss Charles? I think the fact that Miss Charles gave you her time to sit and do a full length interview in and of itself is qualification. That
Yeah.
because we know she was a no nonsense person,
Yeah.
and not one who would waste what she would perceive to be a waste of time. And
Mhm.
so the fact that she agreed to sit down with you to do one interview reveals a certain amount of respect that she had for for you,
Yeah.
and so that gives you full authority, of course.
Of course.
Apart from the fact that you own the interview that you did, the fact that the dame recognized you and consented to sit with you and didn't blow you off. And if you read the book, you will see that she gave deep and honest answers. It wasn't, well, I give this young guy, and let me just hurry up and answer his question and dispatch him on his way. She was actually engaged and
Yeah.
stayed engaged. So I'm going to ask you, um, what was it like? Do you remember the day that you? I mean, I don't know what time of day you did it, but you got up, and that day you know you had an appointment with Dame Eugenia Charles. You're going to do an interview.
Mhm.
Um, you know, were you nervous? Were
Oh yeah,
you what was it like? And just walk us through that. Just walk us through that time immediately preceding going to Miss
yeah.
Charles and to Dame Eugenia and starting that interview.
Okay, well, it was an interview that had been long in the making. I had not really known the dame personally, before the interview. Although
Mm.
she fired me in 1990 from the police force. So
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, her party did. She was the prime minister when I was fired. That's
Mhm.
another story for maybe another time. But I felt bad when she did,
Oh,
and
yeah, you used to be a police.
yeah, when I was recruited into the Dominican Police Service in 1990
Yeah.
together with Corbett, who is now Commissioner Hunter, Laville, Lawrence, a number of us.
Oh, wow, wow. That's
Cost
definitely.
17. Yeah,
Okay, let's go. Let's go ahead.
yeah, so I knew of her because she had fired me, of course, and she was prime minister. I was a YFM member, but I never met her as a YFM member. I was meeting her personally for the first time. So this was traumatic. I mean, I was much younger, and that was my biggest interview ever. So I could not sleep that night. And I had to drive from the country to Roseau that morning. So there's a barrier between the country and Roseau, kind of a culture. So I had to deal with that. But I went to DBS Street, and then from DBS I drove down to her residence in Roseau. It was a Tuesday, I believe, the 30th day of December, 1999. The interview began at about 11:20ish, and it lasted for 2 hours.
Wow.
But I'm telling you, those couple of hours before the interview, like from the morning when I woke up, it was like cold sweat. It was like, well, am I ready for this? Is that really happening? And I only knew it was happening when actually she sat and we started doing the interview.
Right. And Miss Charles had a presence. Did you feel that presence when you
Yes, not
when
just
she
a
walked
presence,
in?
she has a dominating presence. She has a
Mm.
kind of an aura, a spirit around her, a protective spirit too, You don't really get past that penetration, that impenetrable wall, so to speak. Although I think she let me in.
Mhm,
But oh
mhm.
boy, it's tough work, man. There's an energy, man. There is. And when you get close, the closer you get to the dame, is the more intimidating she can be. But after a while, all of that just dissipates, and then you feel as if you are part of the vibe. So you had to gain her confidence, I think, for her to let you in. And I think she let me in based on the interview that we had. But yes, Anthony, she has a spirit about her that if you are not sincere and strong, I don't think you will spend 5 minutes. You'll be able to spend 5 minutes around the Junior.
Right, right, right. So I really wanted to capture that to let people understand that it was a big deal. It was a big deal. Miss Charles, in her time, was compared to Margaret Thatcher, who was Prime Minister of England, and Ronald, and well, not compared to Ronald, but she was associated with Ronald Reagan, the President of the United States,
Yep.
and she ruled Dominica and dominated Caribbean politics in her time. So a young budding journalist going to City would have been daunting and probably intimidating, but it shows your the person that you are, your character, that you didn't back down, you went in and you did it. So if you were to go back there and what was maybe the highlight or some of the more how do you say pungent um poignant, I want to say, not pungent, but poignant aspects of the interview that you had with her.
Boy. I think what stands out to me is her hatred for Patrick John. Patrick John was our first prime minister. She didn't like Patrick at all. There was nothing about Patrick that was redemptive for her. That I think stands out more than
Wow.
anything else.
And you said hatred.
I think she hated him. I don't think she. I mean, well, yeah, because she said it too a couple of times in the book that
Hmm,
how can you like someone like Patrick John? And she went on to give reasons why.
hmm.
She didn't always use hate. I asked her whether she hated him, and she didn't say she didn't, but she said, "How can you like someone who did the things that she accused him of doing?" So
Mm-hmm.
that I think is the standout moment for me in the book. That she just didn't like him. And she was also very big on the revolution, the Grenada Revolution,
Mm-hmm.
1983. That was one of the longest response to a question that she gave, and also family. So those three areas kind of stood out to me. She was very, very big on family, absolutely big on family. She believed very much in the move that she took with the Grenadian affair and Patrick John. Patrick John is number one, however.
Patrick John, her dislike, disdain, whatever you want, whatever the emotionally charged words that you want to use for Patrick John, that stood out in that interview.
Oh
And
yeah,
for
easily.
just to put it in context for folks who are not Dominican, um, Patrick John was the premier of Dominica that took us into independence. So he was the first prime minister of Dominica. Um, his reign as prime minister was ended because of protests and so from the public that forced his resignation and the insertion of a caretaker government, and then the subsequent election. Dame Eugenia Charles won that election and became prime minister following. And so when we talk about the disdain, that's the disdain for of one prime minister for her, the person that she immediately, well, she succeeded. Well, immediate because there was
Not
this
immediately because there was
interim.
a little interim situation
Oliver
with.
Seraphin was
with
in there. Yeah.
yeah.
So let's talk about the aspect of family, because that's
So,
interesting. That is not something that I knew about, and that's something that is surprising. That the second most significant part of
significant.
the is her love or the importance that she placed on family.
Yeah. Well, she refers to the family as an institution, which it is, and she believes that it is the most important institution in society. It is what nurtures people. And she spoke glowingly of her father and mother who had done remarkable work with nurturing them and who taught them at an early age that they must work for what they need and taught them a level of independence um, to the point where she believed that the family is so crucial and necessary in our lives. And if we don't have it, we would not have the kind of quality of individuals in key places in society. She says that you would know the caliber of someone based on the kind of family they come from, and not aristocracy or anything else. Just family structure, family support, standards, the lessons that you can only learn through family. There are some lessons in life, she says, that you will never learn outside of a family setting. So that I remember. And she was, I think, based on the interview, she was more driven by her father, J.B. Charles, but her mom was the rock. Although her father was not quite the leader because she didn't see him as the head, but he was like the provider, so to speak.
So was she a
And
feminist when you say that she
no, Demigina is
didn't
not a
come
feminist.
across as that? She didn't come across as that.
No, she's not a feminist. She was
Okay,
not a
as you
feminist.
say that she because JB Charles was a larger than really person with a really large personality and a great presence. And so it's surprised that she says she didn't quite label him as the leader of the household.
No, he was the provider. That's
Hmm.
what I got from her. But her mom was the rock.
Wow.
And no, she was not feminist. Dame Eugenia and feminism did not jive at the same time. She was an unapologetic conservative. Uh,
Oh, I see.
but she did well for the feminist movement. It is just that I would not call her a feminist.
Okay.
She didn't
That
see
that
herself as as that. She saw herself as a woman, a feminine person, and of course, because of that, she falls in the ilk of feminism.
mhm.
But and as an advocate, a practicing feminist, no, she was more a pragmatic conservative who was rough around the feminist edges. She didn't quite conform to that thing
Right.
called, she did not see her place in life as being a woman. She saw her place as being a human, someone who has more than a feminist voice, someone who should be a policymaker, which was not something that women in her time, and even now to some extent, is traditionally expected to be or to do.
Right. So she didn't accept patriarchic
Labels and
and concepts and that sort of thing. She
no,
thought women could do it just as well as men or even better.
that's Dame Eugenia, yeah. And which
That's
is feminism as well, but in terms of the advocacy of what feminism is, the fine nuances of feminism, she didn't dabble with that at all.
she did,
But she
she did.
identified with the struggle.
Right. So if I mean I may have gaps because um as a young adult I left Dominica to go to college.
Mm.
So I may have gaps, but I don't recall any emphasis during Miss Child's government or any other policies or any great emphasis on family that would have reflected that kind of importance that she placed on family. Did you? Did she? Did you? Did I mean? Do you have a different perspective?
Well, that's a good question. In terms of a governing policy, there's none that I can really point to that really speaks to the protection of family, the promotion of the institution of family.
Hmm.
There's nothing that I have read. Probably it might have been in a draft form or it's somewhere there, but I cannot immediately present the information to
Right.
cross-reference. So and if there was something I would have probably known
You
because I
probably would
actually
have.
grew
Yeah.
up with her through her reign,
Hmm.
but there's no standout policy position that I know of that dealt with the procurements, the protection of families,
Institutions
similar to what like
that
an
would
EU
support
Midland would have
family.
done for culture.
Hmm.
No, she does not have that moment in her policy that really spoke to the protection of families. No.
Right. 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 Yeah. So that is curious. I mean, I'm not asking you to to go into her mind, but it's just curious that if she recognized how much family contributed to the person that she became, and in hindsight, it seems like she was a pretty successful person. Um, it's surprising that that did not translate into the highlights. And if you're in the audience and you know differently, by all means, put it in the chat, and we would definitely welcome that type of contribution from the audience. So if you joined us late, my guest tonight on this weekend interview is Mr. Alex Bruno. Alex is a writer. He is an academic. He is an associate professor. He, among many other hats, somebody said Jamie Eugenia had that dominating voice too. Yes, she definitely had that presence, Glenda. That you know. But so Alex is with us because in 1999 he did a full-length interview over 2 hours with Jamie Eugenia Child. He has the audio, and he transcribed that audio and put it in print, and he's presenting us with that, with her words. And so we are talking about that book. Sam, I don't know if you can put the book up on the screen so the audience can see. And so, folks, if you are an admirer of Miss Charles, that book you definitely that book belongs in your library. If you have um, the different opinion of Miss Charles and her work, you definitely would get some benefit from her words. And if you are just now learning about Miss Charles or you vaguely know of her, you could also get that book because it would enlighten you and give you information um, about her. So this is where I'll take a quick commercial break. Let's get a word from the sponsors. And Alex, when we come back, I want us to talk a little bit more about the politics part of it,
Mm.
the opinion you had of Miss Charles, that Miss Charles had of Patrick John, what she said about E.O. Libla, and all of that tumultuous time that
Yeah.
preceded she coming to power, and then also during her leadership as the Prime Minister of Dominica. So stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back with more conversation with Mr. Alex Bruno.
Presented by
People say I've got a great smile. Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
If you live in Canada, the US, and the UK and are looking for Dominica products including cocoa sticks, bay rum, coffee, soaps, crafts, and other popular Dominica items, then look no further. You can now shop on BuyDominicaOnline.com, a secure, easy-to-navigate website selling a wide variety of Dominica-made and Dominica-inspired products. When you shop on BuyDominicaOnline.com, you are helping to grow Dominica's economy. Go to BuyDominicaOnline.com and enjoy home away from home.
Looking to promote your business, engage current customers, and reach new people? Well, look no further. From the basic presentation to a fully fledged advertisement, use your video ads to attract customers. At Man's Audiovisual Productions, we do just that. We produce videos for business and event promotions, product demo videos, animated explainer videos, fundraiser ads, and much, much more. Engage your clients and sell online. We customize the video to match your brand design. Guaranteed to play flawless on all devices, including smart TVs. Contact us at telephone number 203-690-4342 or 767-245-6238. Visit our website, mansaudiovisual.com. or email us at derekvideo@gmail.com.
All right, welcome back, listeners. Thank you for staying with us through the break. I want you to go ahead and like TDN Radio and This Week in Interview. If you're listening to us on YouTube TV, TDN Network 1, or you are on Facebook, like us, follow us, and drop us a comment. All of those help us to be able to grow the numbers as we do that. And I think that the information and the things that we do on This Week in Interview are so different from what you see everywhere else that it would really be a benefit if more folks would follow and listen to This Week in Interview. My guest tonight on This Week in Interview is Mr. Alex Bruno. And Alex has just published a book, released a book called Dame Eugenia Charles Unedited. It's a book that is based on an interview that he did with the Dame, the late Dame, in 1999. In 1999, she was no longer Prime Minister of Dominica. 1999 would have been approaching 4 years of United Workers' Party in power, who defeated Miss Charles Freedom Party in the polls in 1995. But she was the Prime Minister of Dominica from 1980 all the way up to 1995. She was a presence in the Caribbean. She was, I think, the chairman of CARICOM at the time that there was political upheaval in Grenada that resulted in some violence. And she was very instrumental in inviting the Americans into Grenada to take some action there. Some people call it an invasion, some call it a rescue mission, some call it an intervention. that's a different story. But Demi Junior Charles featured very, very prominently in that activity of the United States in Grenada. She was the first female prime minister in the Caribbean, I believe, for sure. And Alex spoke to her about some of her opinion about politics and politicians. And one of the things that he spoke to her about, Alex, I'm going to read just a little excerpt where you ask her about Mr. E.O. Leblanc. E.O. Leblanc is probably, if anybody had to be described as the political grandfather of Dominica, it would be E.O. Leblanc. Under his leadership, Dominica went through a lot of development, the building of schools, the roads, even more importantly, I believe the national parks and the forest reserves and all of those things were done under the reign of Mr. Leblanc. He preceded me being aware of myself because I was born in 67. So I grew up just knowing of Mr. Leblanc, but even today, people still hold him as the standard against which to judge leaders. And it's interesting that we go there because Alex, when I started talking to you, we'll probably go there to give you some time to talk about that project. You said that this book is part of a 10-year project that you're launching called the Political Leadership Legacy Series, where you're going to your mic is muted by the way, but where you're going to study, present, and write about the leaders from Dominica, starting with Mr. Leblanc, Mr. E.O. Leblanc, all the way to current times, Roosevelt Skerrit, and whoever succeeds Roosevelt Skerrit, because if it's a 10-year project, definitely we'll have another prime minister. I'm saying definitely, we'll have another prime minister beyond Roosevelt Skerrit. So I want you to talk about that project, your Leadership Legacy Series project that you're launching. You're muted.
Okay. Well, yes. Thanks for allowing me to do that. The Dominica Political Leadership Legacy Series, I think, is a worthy project, especially because of our incongruence when it comes to political knowledge. We like politics, we understand it to a great extent, but the knowledge of what really politics is, how it intersects with power, and how it differs from authority is lacking. And it's like we know the oral understanding of it, but we do not have a good grip on not just literary, but a sort of formal aspect of what politics really is and how politics work. So in Dominica today, politics is what it is for the average person, meaning who is the one that excites them the most at the time and stuff like that. I don't think we can sustain this as part of our political culture. I think we should evolve because we are part of the Americas. And America has an interesting model. It's not perfect, but at least we should learn from what they have designed, the good and the bad of it. And one of the most important parts of the American political culture is the literature, beginning with the Constitution and the foundational documents which preceded the Constitution. At least it is there for people to read. And in Dominica, we have nothing that we can actually read. I mean, I am doing a book on Patrick John. That's going to be the second book in the series. But there is a book I think Dr. Andre did one. I'm not too sure that Dr. Andre actually spoke with Patrick. But that's notwithstanding a wonderful effort, and I applaud him for that. In my case, I would have interviewed Patrick for 20 years, researched Patrick as a project. So when I present Patrick John, the man, it is a book taken from Patrick John's mind. The answers to questions about Patrick that we hadn't heard before, because Patrick was never given a voice, Patrick never had a say in terms of his story. The story of Patrick was told by people according to people. So I think it is necessary to do that, to offer the new generation, not the present one per se, because there are people in the system now who do not really care about what we are doing. And I do not blame them if they do not care. But the children who are 9 and 10 now, when they will be 20, they will be reading these books and be saying, okay, I didn't know, or that's what on. And so they'll know how we got to where we are, or where we would have been in 10 years from now. So I'm looking at the first one, Dame Jr. We're looking at Patrick John second. I believe we have Mr. James, Edison James, if not him, Libla third. I'm not sure the order that they're going to come. And we end in with Mr. Skerritt. I'm not going to go beyond Mr. Skerritt. So we're going to stagger the book. Maybe every year or two, a new book will drop. And somebody else, I hope, will take from the new prime minister who would replace Mr. Skerritt. But my task is those between Libla and Skerritt, staggered over 10 years. So no, I'm not going to continue the research. The research will be done, I would imagine, by somebody younger at the time, because in 10 years from now, I'm not going to be as youthful as I am today, Tony. I may want somebody's take on the new set of leaders. But sure, and why I'm going to do those leaders is because I've interviewed all the leaders, except the last one, Mr. Skerritt.
You have not interviewed Skerritt.
He
you
has
still
not
have you still have the opportunity
of an interview.
You still have the opportunity to have that.
Oh, yeah, I'm hoping so, because his book is going to be the last in the series, so we have time. And as you said, there will be a new prime minister. I think probably his book will be written when he's maybe not prime minister anymore, I would imagine, because he's 20 years plus in this, and in 10 years he's going to be 30. He wouldn't expect to be prime minister still. I would hate to think so. So we will be speaking about his legacy after his time, I would imagine. If God grants me the opportunity to be here for 10 years, and even if I'm not here, but I'm putting plans in place for my estate to continue the work. So that's what the project is about. Capturing the work of our leaders so that the next generations of Dominica will not suffer as much as I did suffer to get information about our leaders.
Certainly. All right. So to come back to the book, Dame Eugenia, unedited. I am going to read this. You ask Miss Charles, why have Leblanc maintained his silence over those years? So that was 1999, and there was a lot that had happened. There's much that happened between the time E.O. Leblanc was no longer in leadership and Patrick John and Oliver Seraphine and then Miss Charles. And she said,
so
I don't know.
To put that in context, Tony, Leblanc would have left the political scene abruptly. Not prematurely, because he had been in the politics for like a dozen of years plus, which is long enough to be in politics for anybody to be in leadership, if you ask me.
So I think so.
He up and left Roseau and told them, get a leader, run the country, don't call him, do what they have to do. So he retired from politics, still young, but it was so abrupt that the nation was like, why did our leaders leave? And there had been questions about it that I have the answer to, that will be presented in his book. Mm-hmm. I don't think Dame Eugenia got it right. But so I asked her what she felt about him just being quiet and not even commenting on the politics. And
so you're saying that when he gave up the reign, he did not try to drive the car from the back seat.
No,
he actually retired, and that's what you were asking her. And that's what you were asking her about.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that context. So the question was, why has Leblanc maintained his silence over those years? And Dame Eugenia says, I don't know, because he wasn't interested in the country. If he was interested in the country, he couldn't keep silent when he saw the things that were going wrong. If you worked in the country, you helped to build the country. If you see things going wrong, you cannot just sit back and let it happen. You must talk out. If you find faults in the person who are doing wrong things. So you ask what, and she said, I think that Leblanc was disappointed because he allowed Patrick to succeed him, and that's why he kept quiet or silent. So she was being critical of Leblanc as a statesman, a respected statesman who probably had the gravitas, who probably had the respect for folks from the populace that he could have influenced. Maybe if he had stepped in and opined on some of those aspects. Is that how you read that answer?
Yes, that is pretty much what she said.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the answer was, I mean, I'm not going to qualify her answer or not. I think it is her answer, but LeBlanc's answer about why he left is not the same. I don't think he was not at all disappointed in Patrick. In fact, I think he felt, in my view, based on my discussion with him, that Patrick would have continued the little man agenda which he began. But to me, he was just a wonderful fit to continue LeBlanc's legacy. So she was wrong about that when it
Yep.
came to his the
Okay.
reason. But not speaking at the time left a void was if Libla had spoke up, I think things might have been different. But Libla just didn't want it. He didn't want to have any part of it, especially understanding the reason why he demitted the sin. It was the mid to late 1970s, and the political climate was changing. And the ideology that he stood for was threatened from both sides. Because he was
From
a
his
liberal.
party as well as from the other parties that would exist.
Yeah, so he was having problems from within. Because there was a class of people from within his party that didn't want him to go there. There was a left-wing movement, the sort of communist liberation movement, that was also taking root, a more left radical, and there was the sort of conservative movement that was trying to gain ground. So he was a target, as Patrick John became as well. And he just was not going to have it because it was just too much of a fight for him alone. And Patrick felt he was strong and brave, and Patrick came and Patrick suffered what LeBlanc was scared of because the system was going to take LeBlanc out. It was going to take Patrick out. I mean, they would not survive because it was at that time. It was at the time when the political revolution was the pendulum was switching from liberalism, well, not liberalism, sort of more liberal politics, small man politics, indigenous sort of growth to a more corporate sort of um, capitalist sort of
Fascist sort of, okay.
tendency. And LeBlanc was just not going to have it. It was just too much for him.
So he saw it coming, and the vision that he displayed in the way he led Dominica also, I guess, instructed his own personal life.
Oh,
And
yeah,
he
man.
decided it's time to go. Visionary.
Yeah,
You also
go ahead. Mhm.
you also ask Miss Child, who is the most hated person that you know of? And her answer is very interesting. She said nobody. She doesn't think anybody is the most hated person. I think people forgive people easily in Dominica. That is so prophetic and so astute. Miss Charles says, I think people forgive people easily in Dominica, even if I don't think that she was one of those. But
He said people.
I'm not going to insert that into your book in your interview.
She said people.
Yeah, people don't carry grudges in Dominica.
Oh.
And you said, but you seem to hate. Well, you don't hate Patrick, but you seem to have something against him. And she said, well, I dislike the fact that he was plotting with the Ku Klux Klan to take over the country for the purpose of putting drug factories in Dominica. That's what that's what I am against. I think it was a wrong move. I think it was a wrong move. She repeated that. I think it was wrong to think that for Dominica, that's not what Dominica was meant to be. And then you ask Dame Eugenia if you had a message for Dominica, a short message, what would it be? And she said, I would wish that we would, and this is very, very curious. She said, I would wish that we never had Patrick John doing harm to our country and giving our country a bad name. I couldn't do anything about that. His mother gave birth to him, and it's not his mother's fault that he turned out that way because his mother was a very good woman. I knew her well. She was a huckster, and I used to supply her. I used to drive to her home to deliver oranges and grapefruits to her from our estate. So I know she was a good person. And then you ask, who changed Patrick? Who spoiled him? And Eugenia says, Patrick couldn't take power. He thought that once he was in government, he could say and do what he liked. That, he was important. She continues to say, I have never thought that I was important because I was head of government. But he thought so, and that thought spoiled him. He spoiled himself. I mean, that is so dense. She said she wished Patrick John was never born.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I told you. I told you. No, she never walked back the hatred question.
mhm.
She said she disliked what he did. She didn't say she didn't hate him. Nor did she say I hate him directly. But
But she
because
said she
of
wished she wasn't born.
exactly. So when you read through what she's saying, that's why I tell her this stands out to me, or it stood out to me. And when I spoke with Patrick, and you're gonna hear Patrick response on her. Patrick could not understand that she still held so much venom at that age because I was in 1999. She was already retired. He felt that she would have come around already because Patrick on the other side was gracious and said thanks to her for freeing him because Patrick would have been in prison and she gave him leniency. But she never turned the corner on Patrick. I hope she didn't die with this on her mind.
But that's curious though. Even with those sentiments, and she wishing that he was never born, she still gave him leniency and released him from prison.
Yep. So probably she wasn't all that bad, but boy, her resentment for him was just so profound.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I think that is so. That goes the full gamut of. If she was a man, well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say she was a man. I would say maybe he was having drinks off and on. But no, that's a very wrong statement. But I'm just saying that to go ahead and express um that you wish this person wasn't born because of what they did, and saying that he let power go to his head and he spoiled himself because he grabbed power so tightly. I'm paraphrasing, of course, and then turning around and forgiving and
well,
releasing him from prison
well,
is
that was
interesting.
political. You know that, right? You know the release was political.
Why do you think it was? Of course it was, but what I mean, what are the details of that?
You see, there's something called political graciousness, which is a concept that goes with leaders taking magnanimous acts during their time to show that they are beyond the pettiness of it all. So it's like right now, I don't think the present president of America will do it. But if the current president of America would pardon the former president, it would be political. It would be a big move, put him on a different level. Here is this man who is demeaning you so badly, and you're willing to forgive him, you're willing to pardon him. It is like a special kind of attention that you get when you perform an act like that for someone who the world would not expect you to do. That is the one of the ultimate moves a political leader can make, is to give pardon to their opponent.
I'm convinced that if the former president of the United States does go to prison, whoever is president at that time or becomes president is definitely going to pardon him, whether they're Democrat or Republican. But that is a different. So I
Different.
agree with you.
And And I
But
agree as well that the presidency of the American presidency will not be allowed to languish in jail. No.
enjoy,
So
uh,
somebody
will pardon and forgive. But one day would be enough for me. One
I,
day, just
I
one
think
day.
I think some jail time. I don't know how it's going to work, but I think something is going to happen. I mean, cannot be. And again, we can speak anytime because I keep on telling you, yes, Anthony. But sometimes I get so busy. But we can maybe speak about these topics whenever you have the time. When you don't have a guest and you want to speak, I'm more than happy to do that. But you
Yeah, we
cannot.
can talk politics.
But you cannot tell me that with 90, how many charges now and 4 cases, 4 indictments? I mean, something is wrong. And 2 impeachments before, and a number of enablers and co-conspirators. I mean, the picture is not good. And it cannot be that it's a witch hunt. It cannot be that people are out to get you. Well, maybe they might be out to get you, but you're making it so easy, with the things that I'm seeing. So there's gonna be something. I mean, I don't know, something is gonna happen, man. You can't get away with it all. There's no way.
And so when similar happens in Dominica, I know you're going to be writing about the Prime Minister beyond Roosevelt Skerrit. I'm just sticking that in there. That they will become, even if you said that you're not going to, they will
You
become
think I'm going
part
to
of part
continue
of part
writing?
of part of the leadership legacy.
Okay, well, we'll see. But I don't plan, eh? But I don't think somebody should stay in certain positions for too long. I think one of the things we do in Dominica is that we overstay. You do it's the same set of people. I grew up knowing people in position and they are still in the position. You
And
know,
it permeates the entire society, PTA committees, somebody
yes,
becomes the president of the PTA, they stay there until they're tired and something happens and they cannot be PTL anymore. Or the
yes,
treasurer of a thing. And people think that if somebody comes up and says, okay, well, I want to run for election this annual general meeting to be treasurer, that means that you think that they're stealing money or they're doing something wrong. People don't believe that they can serve and then move on.
oh yeah, and that's a problem. That's a huge problem in Dominica. I mean, it happened in culture. I mean, we have had we had two chief cultural officers. Raymond Lawrence and Alvin Bully. That's it for all those years of independence. And we had a case where our last cultural officer resigned, retired, and was brought back to retire a second time. Now we have someone acted in the role, which is fine. And I'm not knocking Mr. Lawrence because he was a fine cultural officer, but I mean, it just accentuates the issue that we have. And not just him, in many, many places. I think, though, there should be nothing called permanent secretary in the system. There should be secretaries, yes, but not permanent.
Permanent is not supposed to
Talk about the
denote
permanence of the job.
long lasting. It's supposed to be somebody who has some immunity
Well,
to make independent and professional decisions
if
and not necessarily at the whim of whoever is prime minister, that sort of thing.
well, that has not
That's the impression I have of who is a permanent secretary.
that has not panned out, and
It
we
used to
hear
be,
that.
but it's not that anymore. Yeah.
No, no. Of course, we're talking about reform now in Dominica, but
Yeah.
we do not just need electoral reform. We need systematic
Which
reform.
is where I'm trying to segue into the conversation just a little bit, still a little bit from the focus on the book, because you touch a nerve of mine when you talk about that you believe that people should serve for a certain period of time. And my biggest bone of contention with the electoral reform movement, they call it reform, but what is being pushed is not reform. What is being pushed right now is enforcement of the existing laws, a clean voters list, having systems in place where to identify voters and clarifying qualifications for who's on electors list. The laws that exist already deal with that. To me, electoral reform should, on what I think is the most salient problem with our society, is that somebody can stay in power for 20 years. So term limits and a fixed date for election to me should be the most two important aspects. And that's not being, in my opinion, that's not being discussed at all in what proposed. So I'm going to ask you, now that I indulge myself, I'm going to ask you, what do you think about the current quote unquote consultations that's happening um, based on Dennis Byron's report that he submitted.
Consultation. Well, yes, I think it's a consultation, yes, but it's more like well, yeah, it's a consultation is taking place because people are having dialogue. As to what comes out of the dialogue, I don't, I'm not sure. But I am thinking that at the end of the day, the there'll be a coronation of the desire and will of a particular individual or group of people. I do not see where the end game is to have a very fair system in place to benefit all parties and individuals with interest in politics in Dominica. Mainly because of how things have gone on in the politics of Dominica and the rhetoric that is being played out, even throughout the consultations. So how this ends, I think it ends in the advantage of the incumbent party, and it might just be a crowning moment for the continuance of a particular political winning legacy. That is what I see in the not too distant future. Only if the people do not want it. If the people step up, and I think if the alternative group of individuals had gotten it together and were able to speak in one accord with one voice and along the same stream, probably they might have helped. But I think the time for that was last night when the parties met. Because that last night was for the political parties to meet with government. And the parties, I don't think they understood how significant that moment was. Because there's not going to be another consultations with parties again. That's it. After that, the thing goes to the parliament and that becomes law. Parties may send things privately, but who knows what parties send? And who knows if the government is going to adopt anything that the parties send? So last night was a time when the parties should have decided to exchange notes and speak in the presence of the observers and on the hearing of everyone internationally to the issues of the people. And I'm telling you, Anthony, there was such disjointedness in the alternative message that I was on to speak and I didn't, because it was just, to me at that point, I felt it was a letdown that the opposition forces or the alternative movement, whatever it is, could not at least share notes and decide on certain talking points as the government side did. And
they surely did. They were coordinated.
yeah, and the other thing that happened is guys were given commitments. They were given commitments. How can you publicly give a commitment on something that you are suspicious about? I mean, I'm not going to call people's name, but I'm hearing people saying, yes, I agree with this. And the moderator is actually asking them, so I want to know your position over and over again. What do you think? I mean, it happened to the leader of the opposition as well. I don't think let me not analyze her. And then she gave a commitment, and another party gave the same commitment. So that's two parties giving a commitment for certain things. And then tomorrow, when this thing goes to parliament, and then we have this thing on our backs, we're going to say other things. So I think last night was a missed opportunity. I think the consultations is good. I applaud the government for at least putting it out there, but it is very well dressed, very well managed, with the resources behind it to deal with whatever fallout there is. And I think when it's all said and done, it's going to be advantage the incumbent party in power. And that is a shame.
Yeah, and I agree with you, but mine is much simpler. I think that any kind of electoral reform that doesn't include term limits and a fixed date for election is a checkmate in favor of the incumbent government. That's just my. It blows my mind that wasn't a very strong feature. Didi Easter is saying hate is a strong word. Alex used the word hate, but Miss Charles responded with the word dislike. That remark she made alluding to the fact that PJ should not have been born was simply how she felt in the moment based on his actions and poor judgment. So that's one of the comments that we're getting, saying that really she was maybe referring to his what she perceived as his um, damage to Dominica. That if he wasn't born, then he would not become prime minister, would not have been able to inflict those damage that sort of hurt on Dominica. So, folks, of course, I welcome those comments, and I ask you to keep making them. So, Alex, to end this thing, in terms of the consultations, if you hesitate to agree that they are consultation, let's see how it happens and what will change. Um, One of the questions that you asked Miss Charles is who most powerful statesperson you worked with in the past, and she says, "You mean in Dominica?" I don't know. I think the members of my cabinet were the ones I admired.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you get that sense that she was really happy with the team that she had in government and the accomplishment? Did you ask Ms. Charles about what she thought of her accomplishment as Prime Minister for 15 years?
Well, yeah, man, I did. She said she
Mm-hmm.
wish she could have done more, and that she didn't have the resources to do the things that she really wanted to do for Dominica. And
Did she out,
she sung the
did she
genuine.
did she outline any one of those or two of those things that she would have liked to have done more of, save resources?
No, not generally projects, but she said she would have wanted to do more to enhance the lives of the people. And then I asked her about, well, the ordinary people was having a kind of life before you got into office, and you moved them from sort of independent owners of their own domains to a more corporate trickle-down economics Reagan kind of a thing. And she tells me, yes, I understand, but we move in time. But she didn't have what was necessary, what she would have liked. She had to work hard and ask and beg for things that she really didn't have. So she had to make certain decisions that she felt would have trickled down to the people. That's where she went corporate. That's where she went business. Because again, because of her political ideology and her new conservative tendencies and principles, she certainly was a free market kind of an open person. And capitalism would have flourished during the time when she was around, Reagan and Thatcher. So that was that was her explanation for not being able to do more for the people. And as a recompense, or just recompense, just sort of, well, as a means to satisfying the people, she felt corporations would have stepped in and people would have gotten jobs, and the monies that was made in corporate Dominica would eventually benefit those people on the island.
Okay. So that is where you sense her political ideology is have a strong private sector,
Yes.
provide jobs, and therefore people would be independent and be able to, that would translate into economic independence for the people. And you're saying that she felt that she didn't have the resources to take it to the height or to the level that she
That
wanted
she would have liked to take it to you.
to. Okay.
Which again, for the people who are viewing and people who understand the ideologies, is a departure from what occurred before, because under her watch, the unions, trade unions, labor unions, were sort of kind of dismantled, compromised, shaken up.
Similar to what Reagan did, huh?
Yeah, I mean, that is the go-to move. If you want to develop corporations, you take out the unions. That is keeping the corporations to account and having people, and that's what happened. That's a hallmark of conservatives. And when that happens, the people are at the beck and call and the mercies of the corporations that continues to make so much more money on the people's sweat. And there is no mediating force. So that's what happened in Dominica. She took off the union. And the union could not bargain for people to make so much more money than they should be making. And the people who were farmers and surviving on their crops because of market challenges, and then we had banana problems in the market as well, had to find other means. So security work became a big thing in Dominica, and other forms of employment became big. Like my grandfather, who was a farmer, left the farm and came down to do a shop. So little shops represented the smaller versions of smaller business and corporations. And that is one of the things that I think that they did well to transform the economy in terms of how things were. There was a time when small people control the economy. Right now is no longer that case. Big people control the economy. The people who now control the power control the economy. So it's no power in the hands of the ordinary people. And they had the economic power before. So that's what her ideology would have done in Dominica. And some people have harsher rhetoric on it. But as someone who is taught to be gracious to individuals, I'm trying my best to dance the fine dance as far as her legacy, if you want to call it that, is concerned.
So I listened to what you're saying, and it sounds very similar to what is happening now. So am I correct to interpret that you're suggesting that during the United Freedom Party reign for that 15 years, the foundation of that private sector led economic activity was laid, and then the current climate just built on top of that and took it to the next level?
Oh, well, what is happening now is 10 times more than that. And not just corporations are not benefiting from what is happening now per se.
Right.
It is government controlled. So it is worse than just that.
So we move from that into central government.
Yes, which is another ideology, but it's not clearly defined, because I think the case at present is not, it is socio sort of authoritative capitalism, if for a better expression. So it's not defined as socialism
Like
directly.
China.
No, China is defined.
Because China has this strong capitalistic sort of thing, but very controlled by the central government.
Yes, that is defined, and that is fine. Ours is confused. Ours is laced with authoritative tendencies, with a sort of semblance of social welfareism, but more on the social side, and popularism. So we have a sort of a mixed, confused power system that is not driven by any ideology, which makes it lethal and worse than what Dame Eugenia created. And I think, yes, she gave birth to what we have today. I heard the Honorable Prime Minister said that he's the leader of the Freedom Party. He's not wrong. He's not right, but he's not 100% wrong, because his support base comprise majority freedom support, former freedom support. So he's pandering to that support, trying to keep that support in place, and hurting the Freedom Party in their quest to resurge. He's a freedomite.
He says that all the time.
Yeah, the president is a freedomite. The two top positions in Dominica are held by freedomites. The members of his cabinet are former freedomites or still freedomites. So Labour Party is essentially not in power in Dominica. The last time Labour was in power was in 1979 on May 28th. After Patrick fell, Labour was, freedom reigned. Then workers came on the,
maybe under Rosie and Pierre Charles, Labour was.
But Rosie was not a Labourite, and Pierre Charles was not a Labourite. These guys were leftists. They were socialists. They were members of the Dominican Liberation Movement. Their ideology is socialism. The Labour Party ideology was sort of liberal social welfareism. And the DLM, the left, which Rosie and Pierre was, didn't like what Labour was. These guys and LeBlanc and Patrick did not get along. So they took LeBlanc and Patrick thing and called it Labour. But with their ideology, that was a bit left-leaning and more radical than what Labour is. There's no way a Labour government would be in office today and they will be giving people things to eat, giving people handout. The Labour Party would give you an opportunity to make something of yourself, not to give you a house. When Patrick was in office, He didn't give people apartments. He created apartment buildings and now allow people to purchase their apartments. No matter how small, they paid for it. But in the case as now, do you know anybody paying for their apartments?
And the other thing is ownership of the apartment. They paid for it and they were owners of it.
They were owning it.
Mm.
So that is the difference. That's why this system, this setup is far worse than what they actually did. I mean, there was some definition and some method to her process. This one is all built on popularism, I think, and idealism, and the legacy of ambition and stuff like that. Now, again, I have to be gracious in how I explain these things, but if you ask me, Tony, I'm going to answer you. And that's what I see.
Yeah, certainly. So as we rushing towards the end of this conversation I feel like needs to continue.
Mhm.
What else about the Dame that you found out during that interview that I have that we haven't covered tonight with Dame Eugenia Jazz?
That she was an iron, but a soft iron, an iron made of soft metal. She was not as firm as one may want to think. She had a very soft spot, hidden away. And it came out sometime in her little chuckle. And she chuckled many times. She chuckled more towards the end of my interview than at the beginning. So I found out that she's not all that stern. And if you know how to get into her space, she can be a real cool person. She can be a real cool person. But she had to be tough for a lot of reasons. One of them being she was born as a woman at a time when the woman didn't belong in the system as she showed that she actually did belong. She was the first woman lawyer, barrister in Dominica. So that helped to make her that helped to give her a metal persona. But when you go past that, there was something nice and soft about Dame Eugenia that I was able to identify. And again, I'm saying that because it's true. She may have she may have done things to people. She did to me for sure. She fired me. She took away my inheritance and probably my future. If I didn't have to, she didn't, probably I wouldn't have had to struggle so much to get where I am today. That notwithstanding, I hold nothing against her to say that she had some beauty deep within. She certainly was an introvert, and that is not a disqualifying vice. It's a qualifying vice. I think introverts make good leaders. But along the path, she grew some metal skin, and some people felt her wrath. And I think what she did with the fusing of the political ideologies and creating this, what we have today, for some is unpardonable. And for others, it has to be reweaved, has to be reorganized. And I think Tony, you and others can probably help to realign Dominica. Hopefully, we can do that before Dominica goes to failed state scenario, because Dominica can fail as a nation. The state can fail. And if we get to that point, as Haiti is right now, it's no turning back. There's no getting back from that. And it can happen, but it's going to take a lot of hard work. People are going to have to trust each other, and we're going to have to decide to fix our country. I'm not hearing you. You're muted. You're muted, I think.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. So 2 questions to close this interview, right?
Yeah.
Charles were alive today, and it goes back to the question of she saying that LeBlanc was silent when she thinks he should have spoken up. If she were alive today and she was existing in current day Dominica, what role would you see her? What would she be saying? What would she be doing?
From the book. It's written in the book. Charles did not seek to degrade. Not necessarily. And if she had been around today, she would frown very vociferously on the present happenings. She would certainly be vocal, absolutely vocal. She would go out personally and search out the Freedomites and tell them, get out of that. That is the Dame Eugenia that I think. That's what I think she would do if she were here today. She certainly would not approve to what is happening in terms of the governance of Dominica. And it is written in the book. People who are going to buy the book are going to see it in terms of what I actually think. Yes, she was tough. Yes, she made her mistakes, but she did not want to hog power. She felt 12 years was good enough for her. After her 12 years, she announced that she was leaving. I mean, she bashed up the party for real, but she left. She left. She would never, the present government would have had a rough time to deal with Dame Eugenia had she been here today.
Yeah. So again, as you said, it's in the book, folks. I'll make one last appeal to you to get that book. If you are Dominican, get the book. If you are a fan and admirer of Dame Eugenia Child, get the book. If you are one of her detractors, get the book. If you're someone who doesn't know as much about her as you should, and you should know about her, because she played a pivotal role in Dominica politics, in the Caribbean politics, you get that book by Alex Bruno called Dame Eugenia Unedited. And you know, Dame Eugenia spoke her mind, so her words were unfiltered. So you're getting the unfiltered and unedited words of Dame Eugenia Child. And so I encourage you to get the book, read it, and we can have further conversation. It's the first in the series that Alex is embarking on called Political Leadership Legacy Series. He said it's a 10-year project. And he started with Miss Charles. He's going to go to Patrick John, then probably E.O. Libler, Edison James in that order, whichever order. So, Alex, how should we remember Eugenia Child, Dame Eugenia Child?
As a special prototype. There's not going to be another person like Dame Eugenia. Yes, she was the Caribbean Irons lady. Thatcher was England's Iron Lady. But I don't think she can be replicated. So people like her don't come around anymore. They don't make them like her anymore. And the way we should remember her is by marking her time and her life. And this book, I think, does justice to it. I know Christian, was it Brother Christian, also did some work on her, and other people have written about her. On her 100th birthday, when she would have been 100, I went to convent her alma mater and had conversations and asked them to kind of establish a club, a political science club that I would support and mentor in her name and in her honor. They didn't even have a. I also suggested that we have an assembly in the name of the Dame. Nothing. I went to her party and told her party that we should have certain public gatherings to talk about her time. Anything. It's like the Dame is dead, long live the Dame. I don't think we should allow her spirit and her legacy to just die just like that, because would we like it? No, when our present prime minister dies and we just forget about him? No. I think we should remember our leaders, the Americans, the Chinese, everybody remember the leaders. Let's remember the people who have led us, and good or bad, talk about them, the good, and talk about the bad, because they sacrificed their life for us. She served for 15 years as prime minister for our country. Her legacy should not be allowed to die just like that, or whatever it is that we call her legacy. So let's talk about those people. Let's remember the Dame as the first woman prime minister of our country, in good and bad. And let the children know the work that she did and the people who were with her when she did the work that she did.
Well, I would suggest, Alex, that you go to the current Freedom Party Prime Minister. Maybe you would have gotten a better result.
Yeah, probably. I actually tried interviewing him, but he didn't take my. You mean you're talking about the Freedom Party leader? What, you confusing me? I mean, the leader.
Roosevelt Skerritt says he's the leader of the Freedom Party. So if you want somebody who has the means to do something about the memory and the legacy of the day, maybe you should go there.
Hopefully, I hope he gets this appeal and gives me this interview. I really want to talk to him, but again, it's all up to him. He will just be the only prime minister I didn't speak to, and that would be, I guess, on him. I really hope he does, because he has some questions I would like him. There are some questions I would like him to answer. So let's see if he gives me the interview.
So, so Didi Easter says, Alex, Dominica is already a failed state with such a weak economy and bad governance. I think this puts Dominica in that category.
I disagree. A failed state is characterized by excessive crimes and corruption that overrides the operation of government. At least the government can still function. In a failed state, government doesn't function. Haiti is a failed state. The, the gangs run Haiti. They hijack people, they take money. The government has no control, they have lost control. Has the government lost control of Dominica? No. So Dominica is teetering on the precipice of failure. Yes, we have economic problems, but I would not, as someone who understands what such labels mean, label Dominica as a failed state. Dominica is not yet a failed state. Dominica is still even a democracy, but it's a very weak democracy, a very ailing democracy. And yes, probably Didi Easter is correct about where we are heading. But when Dominica failed Didi Easter, you will know. Sorry, if Dominica failed, God forbid, you will know. When Dominicans start taking pui and drowning on the way to Guadeloupe and Martinique and St. Lucia or anywhere else, but here, when people do not own their possession, there's a man in Haiti who cannot go to his possession. The gangs own that area. He no longer owns the $1 million house that he owns. I mean, that Dominica is not yet in that category. But Didi Easter might be onto something. It is just that I cannot qualify Dominica as a failed state. It would be against my profession so to do.
Okay. So, Alex, thank you. I think this was a wonderful conversation about a leader who was very influential and who was very impactful. And thank you for doing the work, because one of the things that we need is records. And well, we came from a tradition of telling stories.
Oral
Stuff
tradition.
was passed down through stories and so on, our oral tradition. But the world has evolved and moved on, and we still have that oral tradition. But there's things that need to be captured in a more organized and by experts in that field. And so I want to tell you, thank you so much. I wish you all the best with this book and with the other series. It's obvious there's a lot of ground we haven't covered, so you have an invitation to come back. There are other areas that I would like to talk to you about. I like the part where we go about defining politics and defining different types of government. We did not even talk about data and the absence of data and how we need to do something about being able to collect data so we can make decisions and we can understand things. There are a lot of areas I think that you and I can explore for the benefit of this audience. And so I'd like to say thank you to the audience for staying with us. We did an hour and a half, a little more than an hour and a half. And I hope you guys agree with me that this was a wonderful conversation, very informative, very candid, and I certainly have my impression and my idea about who Dame Eugenia Charles was. Oh, it has certainly evolved somewhat after this conversation. So, Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony. It was a pleasure. And let me say thanks again to the man, Sam. This man is amazing. I am eternally in his debt for having us here today. Had it not been for Sam, this interview was not taking place, Tony. I can tell you that. So thanks, and I look forward.
Certainly.
I look forward to a follow-up discussion. If you hope it's not going to be as long as it was the last time.
we go out in the fields and we work, and then we come back and commune, and then we go back out again. But yes, there's so many pressing things that we need to talk about. Hopefully it will be sooner than it had than since the last time. It was really good talking to you. So, folks, get your copy of the book. Alex, by the way, it's available on Amazon, right?
In all forms, man, all formats, um,
Okay.
all formats, including audio format as well, that I know Sam is doing the final touches with. But I think we have 5 formats on the book. We have hard copy, we have paperback, we have the e-copy. What do you call it? The e-copy, Sam? Correct me if I'm wrong. And there's audio book. I mean, it's just all in all different formats. So pick your format and get it. You can get the book right now and start reading right away on Kindle by getting the digital
Right.
format.
It's on Kindle. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So congratulations again and good night.
Merci Fouet. Thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed the interview.
Yeah, you're very welcome, man. You're very welcome. So, folks, you have it. Another conversation that I thoroughly enjoy and I enjoy sharing with you. As the host of this weekend interview, I get to get put in situations that I would not normally be put in, and I learn so much. That's the most important aspect of it, is that I learn so much during these interviews. So thank you to my guest, Alex. Thank you to Sam and Ella and everybody else who made this interview possible. And get your copy of Dave Junior Charles, unedited, written by Alex Bruno. So good night, folks. See you next week.